What if I told you that in America today, making $129,000 a year might not mean you're doing well, it might just mean you're not struggling yet? That sounds absurd. For decades, six figures meant success, comfort, stability, and a securely middle-class life. A house, a car, savings, maybe vacations, maybe college for the kids. Most importantly, the feeling that one bad month would not wreck your life. But for a growing number of Americans, that version of success is slipping away. People are earning more than ever, yet feeling less secure than they expected. So what changed? How did a country get richer on paper while everyday life started feeling more fragile? Well, to answer that, we need to start with something that sounds almost optimistic. This is not just a doom story. In one very real sense, America has gotten richer. Over the last 50 years, more families have climbed into higher income groups, and the ranks of the upper middle class have expanded dramatically. In the late 1970s, only about 1 in 10 Americans fell into the upper middle class. Today, depending on the definition, it's closer to 1 in 3. That is a massive shift. It means millions of households now earn incomes that would have sounded impressive, even wealthy, a generation or two ago. For many of them, that progress is real. They went to school, got degrees, built careers, bought homes, saved for retirement, and ended up doing better than their parents. So, yes, the latter still exists. Plenty of people really did climb it. But here's where the story takes a turn. If more Americans are earning high incomes, why do so many of them still sound stressed out? Ask households making $150,000, $200,000, even $250,000 a year how they're doing, and a surprising number won't say, "We're thriving." They'll say, "We're okay," or "We're comfortable, but it still feels tight." That sounds strange until you look closer. Many families are not earning more because life got easier. They are earning more because life now requires more money just to stay stable. More households have 2 incomes, more people have degrees, more families earn 6 figures than ever before. But that second paycheck often does not create freedom. It gets swallowed by childcare, commuting, car payments, work expenses, and the constant cost of keeping 2 busy adults functioning. So from the outside, the household looks richer. But inside the budget, it may not feel richer at all. They are clearly not poor, they may even look successful. But the big pieces of security, a decent home, healthcare, childcare, college savings, retirement, still feel expensive and fragile. So maybe the problem is not just how much people earn, maybe the real question is what that income actually buys now. And once you look at the budget, the picture changes fast. Take a household earning around $83,000 a year, roughly the US median. On paper, that sounds like enough for a solid middle-class life. But after taxes, the money they actually live on is closer to $65,000. Now start subtracting. Housing comes first, because it always does. In many parts of the country, especially near major cities, rent or a mortgage can easily eat up $25,000 to $30,000 a year. Let's call it $28,000. Just like that, the family is down to about $37,000. Then comes transportation. In much of America, a car is not a luxury. It's how you get to work, school, the grocery store, the doctor, and almost everywhere else. Add gas, insurance, maintenance, registration, and maybe a car payment, and another $10,000 can disappear fast. Now they're at $27,000. Then, healthcare. Even with employer insurance, families still pay thousands in premiums, deductibles, copays, and surprise bills. The coverage may exist, but that does not mean care feels affordable. Now the budget is closer to $20,000, and this is where things start falling apart. If that household has young kids, childcare can wipe out what's left. In many places, full-time care for one child can cost more than $10,000 a year. For 2 kids, it can feel like paying a second rent. At that point, the budget is basically gone. And notice what has not happened yet. They have not gone on vacation, they have not bought anything fancy, they have not built a big emergency fund, they have not replaced the tires, fixed the dishwasher, paid for summer camp, helped an aging parent, or saved seriously for retirement. They have just tried to live a normal life. And somehow, normal life has already used up almost everything. When families say they feel stretched, people often assume they mean overspending, too many subscriptions, too many dinners out, too much lifestyle inflation. But that misses what modern household budgets actually look like. Most of these costs are not optional. You need housing near jobs, transportation to reach them, healthcare because going without it is dangerous, and childcare if both parents have to work to afford everything else. These are not luxuries. They are the price of functioning in the modern economy. And that is why so many households don't feel irresponsible. They feel trapped. Because they're not paying for a lavish life. They're paying the toll required to live a normal one. And yet, by federal standards, a family of 4 is only considered poor at a little over $31,000 a year. So here's the bigger question. If basic life now costs so much more than that, why is the official poverty line still set so low? That number matters a lot. It shapes who qualifies for Medicaid, food assistance, housing support, and tax credits. It also shapes how America talks about who is struggling and who isn't. And to understand why it looks so disconnected from modern life, you have to go back to the early 1960s. The official US poverty line comes from a very different America. In the early 1960s, Social Security economist Molly Orshansky built the formula around food. Back then, families spent about 1/3 of their income on food, so she took the cost of a basic food plan and multiplied it by 3. At the time, that made sense. Food was one of the biggest household expenses. Housing was cheaper relative to income. Healthcare was not the financial monster it is today. And many families did not face the same childcare costs that working parents deal with now. But today, that formula feels like it belongs to another country. For most families, food is no longer the thing that breaks the budget. Housing is, healthcare is, childcare is. Rent, mortgage payments, insurance premiums, and daycare bills are the costs that decide whether a household feels stable or constantly behind. So if the old formula says food times 3, the modern reality suggests something very different. If food is now a much smaller share of the budget, then multiplying food by 3 no longer captures the true cost of basic life. You would need a much larger multiplier to reflect what families actually pay for. And when you run that thought experiment, the implied baseline for a family of 4 does not land anywhere near $31,000. It lands much closer to $129,000. Now, to be very clear, this does not mean a family making $129,000 is literally poor in the traditional sense. It means something subtler. A number many Americans still associate with comfort may now be closer to the minimum required to feel secure. And that is the part that makes this so uncomfortable. The official line still measures survival through an old budget, but real families are trying to afford a modern one. Now, here's where things get even more frustrating. Imagine a single parent with 2 kids earning $16,000 a year. At that level, they qualify for food assistance and childcare support. It's not easy, but it works. Then they get a raise. Their income goes up to $25,000. That should help, but instead, some benefits disappear. Food assistance drops off, and suddenly, they're worse off, even though they're earning more. It happens again. Their income rises a bit further, and this time childcare support disappears too. That's thousands of dollars gone. So once again, they earn more and fall behind. Economists call this the benefits cliff, but for the people living through it, it feels like a trap. They earn too much to qualify for help, but not enough to afford everything on their own. And the worst part is, they don't show up as poor at all. They exist in the gap between the numbers and reality. For millions of families, life felt like constant running without ever getting ahead. Then, for a brief moment, something unexpected happened. During the pandemic, something unusual happened. Many of the costs that normally squeeze families suddenly disappeared. Commuting stopped, gas spending dropped, lunches out, dry cleaning, office clothes, and daily work expenses faded almost overnight. For some families, childcare costs changed too. Not always in an easy way, of course. Many parents were overwhelmed at home. But financially, one thing became clear. A huge part of modern life is not just earning money. It is paying for the ability to keep earning it. At the same time, stimulus checks and temporary support gave many households a little breathing room. And for a brief moment, some families experienced something they had not felt in years: margin. An unexpected bill did not instantly feel like a disaster. A missed week of work did not immediately feel like falling off a cliff. The pressure did not vanish, but it eased enough for people to notice what had been crushing them. That was the real lesson. Many households were not broke because they were reckless. They were stretched because ordinary life had become expensive to maintain. Then the economy reopened. Commuting came back, childcare came back, housing costs climbed, insurance costs rose, healthcare stayed expensive, and for many families, the small breathing room they had found disappeared again. So the pandemic did not create the problem, it briefly exposed it. For a lot of Americans, the issue was never just income, it was the sheer cost of participating in everyday life. This is the deeper point. America is richer than it used to be, but that does not automatically mean Americans feel safer. A salary that once signaled abundance now often signals temporary stability, and that changes behavior. People delay buying homes, they delay having children, they hesitate to switch jobs, they avoid starting businesses. Not because they lack ambition, but because the downside risk has become more brutal. One bad year can mean debt. It can mean losing insurance, it can mean abandoning a long-term plan. So even high-earning households often sound anxious, because the margin for error has shrunk. That makes this bigger than a budgeting debate. The question is not just whether Americans make more money, but whether that money still buys the security it used to. And once you see it that way, the title stops sounding ridiculous. So, why is $129,000 the new poor? Not because $129,000 makes a family destitute, not because six figures suddenly mean misery, but because in a country where the official poverty line still reflects a 1960s budget, where incomes have risen but the biggest life costs have risen faster, and where support often disappears long before real stability begins, the old definitions no longer match reality. America didn't just get richer, it also got more expensive in the exact places that matter most: housing, healthcare, childcare, education, the foundations of a stable life. So when people say they're earning more and still feel behind, that isn't confusion, it isn't entitlement, and it isn't just bad budgeting. It's a sign that the economy has quietly redefined what it takes to feel safe. And that number is a lot higher than most people still realize.